Oh, welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. You're so smart. You are. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. You know what? Here, let's interrupt the normal way that we do the start of the show. You are so smart. All right, because you have the opportunity to choose just about any other show this side of the Mississippi, and you chose to be here. Now, I don't know if that actually does make you smart. I might question your sanity. I might actually question my own sanity from time to time. But you chose to be here, and I appreciate you. If no one else tells you today, I appreciate you. If you woke up this morning and your spouse or your significant other didn't tell you that they appreciate you, if your best friend didn't send you a meme in the middle of the day and tell you that they appreciate you, if you had a friend at work who didn't tell you they appreciate you, if your boss didn't tell you that they appreciate you today, let me let you know. I appreciate you. I got your back. Thank you for being here. But as I said, it's the Russ Joy Show. My name's Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart. And it's also the name of the show. Hello. Welcome on in. We have so much to get to. Now, if you're not a Flyers fan, today might not be your cup of tea. We are going to get to a couple of non-Flyers related things, but later in the day. And I know that Ford, of course, not a big Flyers guy, not a big hockey guy, but he's here to support. That's a good guy. And if you also want to support another show that's part of the Joy Media empire, I was going to call it the Joy Media Network. That's what I actually should have named the LLC. Doesn't matter. If you want to support all the shows that are going out on the we'll call it the Joy Media Network, whatever the hell we're going to call it, I still don't know, then I would encourage you to get your keister to the Chickies and Pete's in Malvern today, because, of course, at 6 o'clock, we're going to be going live with a radio show, Snow the Goalie Radio, 6 o'clock, Wednesday night at the Chickies and Pete's in Malvern, Pennsylvania. You come on out. You have a good time. We're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be something to behold, something to see. I think it's going to ultimately be worth your while to be there. You can, of course, check out the show on the radio as well. I mean, I would prefer that you probably check it out through YouTube. But if you feel so moved by the spirit, if you're going to be in the car, you're like, hey, where can I find the station? It's over on 1490 AM, WBCB. So you can go check us out there. I think there's also an FM station. I think it's 107.3 FM. If you're out in the Bucks County area and you're looking for how to find the show, I believe 107.3 FM is also where you can find it. But if you're listening on AM, 1490 AM, WBCB, you can listen to us on the radio. You can check it out on YouTube. You can check it out on X or on Facebook. But more importantly, you can come out to Chickies and Pete's in Malvern, and you can come find us. Now, I do see a question here. Will it be live streamed, says Steven. It will. And Chris Freed asks, where's the next one? All right, hold on. Let me see if I can find this for you really quickly. Very professional of me. In the midst of the start of my own show, I am now hijacking the show to let all of you know about different shows and when they're happening and where they're happening. I will find it. I don't remember off the top of my head. I do have a list somewhere of all of the shows and the schedules and all that lovely stuff. So I'll let you know. I'm pretty sure next week is in Warminster. I think. I'm like 93% sure that's where it's going to be, is Warminster next week. I could be wrong. I will try to find out. And then I'll get back to all of you and I'll let you know. And then you can, oh no, wait, I might actually have it. No, I don't. I lied. I have a list of it some here. It doesn't matter. I've now derailed the start of my show by promoting the Chickies and Pete's of it all. I have it here. Here we go. I stalled for long enough. I found the list. We can all rejoice and be glad. I just need the document to open up. As long as it does, I'll be able to let you know. This week is in Malvern. We're doing the show every Wednesday at 6 o'clock at a rotating list of Chickies and Pete's. So you can come out, have a good time, have a blast, enjoy all there is to enjoy with the hilarity of Snow the Goalie. So we're in Malvern. I was right. We're in Malvern tonight. Warrington on the 22nd, Drexel Hill on the 29th. Then we go to Glassboro, back to Warrington. Then we're down on the boulevard. So that's like northeast Philly is the one on the boulevard. Then we're at the Parks Casino at the end of November. And we get out to Marlton, back to the Boulevard, Drexel Hill, Bordentown. I didn't even know Bordentown is a town, but apparently it is. So we have a rotating list of locations that we'll be at. If you want to do some hockey talk, if you want to come chat with the Snow the Goalie crew, we will be there tonight. Come find us out in Malvern at Chickies and Pete's. Okay, I've done enough promoting another show while also trying to get everything up and running on this show. Okay, we have a lot to get to because the Phillies made a little bit of news, and there's a little bit coming out around the Phils. And the Eagles had a couple of concerning things come out, and we'll get to those a little bit later on in the show. But we have to start with your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. Because, my friends, the Flyers don't look like doo-doo. They don't. I'm actually going to bring the comments up down here in the bottom right-hand side of the screen because I would actually like to find out from all of you wonderful people how you're feeling about the Philadelphia Flyers at this point. They went down to Florida to open the season. Close loss. Dan Vladar looked really good in net. They go to Carolina. It looks like they have a win. Bobby Brink nets the game winner. Comes back because of goaltender interference. And by the way, there was a clip that somebody shared to me on Instagram last night showing another game where there was a non-call of goalie interference, which was actually more egregious than the one that Sanheim had on Anderson. And by the way, Anderson initiated the contact, and the Flyers end up losing in overtime against Carolina. And so you go, all right, there should be some momentum with the Flyers going into their home opener on Monday night against the Panthers. And the question was, is Vladar going to be back in net, or are they going to roll out Ersson, who has been the opening night starter? He was the opening night starter last year. He finished the season before, the second half of the season, as the number one guy. And you thought maybe Rick Tocchet was going to go back to him again. And he didn't. He went back to Vladar. And Vladar had a hell of a game. Made some really great saves. Second goal, not a great one to give up. First goal was one where he was trying to dive post to post again. Didn't get there. But on the whole, there were a lot of positives to take out of Monday night's win. And I was so happy with how the Flyers did on Monday night that I almost did a special reaction show on this here channel on YouTube. I thought about it. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe that's, if I ever do channel memberships, maybe that's what the channel memberships are. That like maybe we have a cup of coffee in the morning and we recap the Flyers game from the night before. Now, I'm not going to do this for the Flyers and the Sixers. It'd probably be a Flyers thing. I think a good number of you who follow the show are here for Flyers talk. I'm not sure how many of you are here for Sixers talk. You can let me know in the comments. But I thought about it. I'm like, do I do a show the day after where we have a conversation about the previous night's Flyers game? We used to do it on Snow the Goalie. It's kind of hard to get all of us to juggle the schedules together to do it over there. So I thought about doing it over here. Maybe it's a channel membership thing. I don't know. You guys can let me know if it makes sense. Anyway, I was excited about what I saw on Monday. Now, I am on the record since the end of last season saying that I think the Flyers have a good chance, like a legitimate chance. And I'm not bullshitting. I think the Flyers have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. I do. I think that the Flyers have a better team this year than they did last year. And that as long as the goaltending doesn't totally go off the rails, which is possible, but if the goaltending doesn't go fully off the rails, I think that there is a legitimate path to this team being a playoff team. And you got to see it on full display on Monday night. Now, listen, we do have to be fair. Florida has injury concerns. Florida also did not have Sergei Bobrovsky in net. So you can have a couple of caveats. You didn't take on a fully locked and loaded Panthers team, getting ready for what they're going to hope is going to be a quest to a back-to-back-to-back Stanley Cup victory. I will allow that. But this is still a very damn good Panthers team. And if we're being fair, which we do on this show, the Panthers, even with their injury concerns, are probably still a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. When fully healthy, they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. With injuries, still probably top 3. You want to make a case top 4? That's fine. You do you, honey boo-boo. But the Flyers didn't look like they were out of place. They didn't look largely outclassed on Monday night. And maybe the most important thing to come out of Monday was the rebound, the bounce back play of the captain, number 14 in your program, number 1, once again, in some of your hearts, Sean Couturier. Now, I've been very clear about Sean Couturier. He came on Snow the Goalie last year in the midst of a very tough time that he was having with Torts. He came on the show. He was very open and honest about his feelings, about things and how they went down with the coach the previous season when he was getting benched down the stretch as part of that bullshit playoff run that the Flyers never should have participated in, which ultimately landed them in a spot where they ended up taking young Jetlachenko instead of Zeev Buyin, which continues to look like a bad decision. But I've been told by some people I'm wrong about that Jetlachenko is going to be a real stud, and Zeev was a -4 the other night when he scored a goal, and I'm an idiot because I don't value defensemen being able to play defense. Okay. If we just set that aside for a second, I'm not jaded. I'm not upset. We'll just put that off to the side. If the Flyers hadn't done that bullshit playoff run, they probably would have been in position to get a player that could have maybe helped the team this year. I don't think Jetlachenko's that guy, but we'll see. Maybe he'll develop here. They'll hold him back from going down to Guelph, and he will be up here the entire season, and he'll be in and out of the lineup and practicing with teammates and practicing under this coaching staff, and they'll feel like that's better for his development than sending him back to junior for a shitty junior team. Maybe. I don't know. But Couturier was benched in large part, in mi opinion. He was benched because Tortorella wanted to galvanize the locker room. I don't think Tortorella was thrilled with Couturier's performance in the second half of the season 2 seasons ago. Never mind the fact he was coming off of multiple back surgeries, and that's going to take a while to get your health back and to kind of get your body right. I don't think Torts was thrilled with the second half of the season play out of Couturier. Never mind the fact that he also rode Couturier into the ground the first half of that season. We set all of that aside. Flyers go on this nonsensical playoff push that ultimately resulted in Couturier's benching. I would say Couturier's sheer embarrassment, right? It felt like it was almost a game being played by John Tortorella, who had named him captain. There was always conflicting information about whether Torts actually wanted to name Couturier captain. If it was a front office-led decision, the front office will tell you that it was all Torts. I don't really care. I don't think it matters. Maybe it does to you. Regardless, Couturier was in a very bad spot with the coach 2 years ago. Last season, very clearly carried over. And fans really did turn against Couturier a lot last year. Now, if we're being fair, which again, we do on this show, a lot of Flyers fans were ready to give up on Sean Couturier 2 seasons ago. Now, the first half of the season, he looked good. The second half of the season, coming off of 2 back surgeries, run into the ground, he was significantly slower and did not react well in the second half of the season. Last year, he was okay. And there were times that it looked like he was skating in quicksand. And a lot of fans turned against Sean Couturier, which I thought was largely unfair. And then you fast forward to Monday. New head coach, a head coach that has been largely applauded by his team as being somebody who's open, who's honest, who has a better line of communication between the coaching staff and the players. And Sean Couturier, who was outspoken last year, especially after Torts was dismissed, and Sean Couturier, who has certainly been outspoken through the offseason and preseason and going into the season, whenever asked about last year. Couturier had a turn back the clock game on Monday night. 4 points, 2 goals, 2 assists. And in a midst of a time where fans were kind of piling on Matvei Michkov and him looking slow in the first 2 games of the season and not getting a shift in the overtime against Carolina, and then that leading to Tocchet saying there was an ankle injury in the offseason, yada, yada, yada. With all eyes pretty squarely locked on Matvei Michkov, Couturier goes and takes all of the pressure off of Michkov and has himself a hell of a game. And Couturier was the steady force on the ice for the Flyers on Monday night, including a goal that came off of an absolutely ridiculous pass from behind the net by Trevor Zegras, a guy who started the season at center and then on Monday night was playing on the wing. And Rick Tocchet addressed it today, saying that Dvorak and Zegras can both play wing. They can both play center. And that Tocchet is really just concerned with getting the puck onto Trevor Zegras' stick as much as possible, whether that's at center, if it's at wing. We can come back to that in a bit. But Zegras, who has kind of been maligned as being a skill guy, a flashy guy, but maybe not a hockey player. He held 2 guys off the puck and whipped around a quasi no-look pass across the face of goal through 2 additional defenders to the stick of Sean Couturier, who buried it. Now, Have I been thrilled with all of the line combos to this point? Not necessarily. Not 100%. Do I think that there's a method to the madness? I do. Am I willing to give a new head coach some leeway and a little bit of rope and just a little bit of, I'll say the man has some gravitas, so I will give him a period of grace here, a little grace period to figure out the lines. Monday night, he pushed all the right buttons. Things worked really well. Zegras looked good. Couturier looked really good. The Forster-Cates Brink line looked fantastic again. Could you have a conversation about whether Jetlachenko is impressing right now? He's not. As a fourth line center, he's not going to impress you. If you're really trying to figure out a way to get the most out of Jetlachenko in the 9-game sample that you can get from him at the beginning of the year, unless you're going to keep him the whole year, probably can't be the fourth line center. You would think that Lachenko maybe has to be the 3C. Then you're talking about having to jostle things because you don't want to break up the Brink and Cates line. You don't want to do that. That could be catastrophic. The Forster-Cates Brink line. You're not going to break that one up. You don't necessarily want to move Zegras off of center to the wing, although they did it on Monday. I can't imagine they want to take their free agent signing in Dvorak and play him at 4C, nor do I see them saying, yes, let's take Jetlachenko from 4C to 2C and push Zegras out to the wing. So I don't exactly know where Lachenko's supposed to find his game. You're not going to be impressed with him. I wasn't particularly impressed with him as a fourth line center on Monday. The guy that I continue to be really, really impressed by every single game, and it's really only been the last two because he didn't factor into the lineup in the season opener, is Nikita Grabenkin. Nikita Grabenkin has become one of my favorite Flyers to watch, and it is because of a relentless motor and a true selflessness. Grabenkin is not looking to make the flashy play. Grabenkin is not looking to get his me stats. Grabenkin is very clearly trying to win battles along the boards, keep the play alive, keep the puck in the offensive zone, and give his team opportunities to put pucks on net. That's the kind of guy this team desperately needed. And when you look at the return for Scott Laughton, there was a question last year. Is Grabenkin ever really going to be an NHLer? Well, he had a very impressive preseason. Team felt really good about him at the end of the preseason. He made the team, right, from the start of the season. Didn't play in the opener. He's played the last 2 games. He has brought a certain level of grittiness, a certain level of greasiness, and a certain level of just, he seems like a fun dude, right? The sound bites are great. Got a smile that lights up the room. You need a character. I'd rather it be one of these younger guys like a Grabenkin, more so than your grizzled vet who's a typical fourth line winger. I like seeing Grabenkin in the lineup. I've been legitimately impressed by him in both games that he's played in so far this season. Now we can go back to Dan Vladar has looked every bit of what you hoped he would be. Now, when the Flyers signed him, obviously the thought was he's going to be the backup to Sam Ersson. He's going to be a steady hand. But one of the things that actually came up to Rick Tocchet over the last few days is this notion that Vladar, when he was playing in Calgary, ended up playing against some of the tougher opponents as Calgary looked to shield their younger netminder. They put Vladar out against tougher competition, and down the stretch for the Flames, Vladar came up pretty big. I'm not yet ready to say that the starting gig should 100% go to Dan Vladar. It's 2 games. Ersson has had 1. But we do know that Ersson is probably better suited as a backup. We don't know for certain that Dan Vladar can't be a starter. Now, I'm certainly not going to try to pitch you on the idea that Dan Vladar is a top 20, top 15, top 10 goalie in this league. That's insane. But if Vladar continues to go out and give you performances where he's got above a 900 save percentage, that is something that Sam Ersson just simply put cannot and has not done to this point in his career. So if over the course of the next week or two, Dan Vladar continues to get the bulk of the starts or get 2 out of every 3 starts, and he's able to continue putting up the 933 save percentage he has right now, he's only allowing 2.02 goals per game. If he continues to give you those kinds of numbers, you really do have to have a consideration that maybe Vladar is the guy that you ride here for a while. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There will be teams. If if it were to ever come to this, we know that Sam Emerson is a restricted free agent at the end of the year. To me, if Vladar is the better goalie and Emerson can be a backup and perform admirably as a backup, it doesn't help his free agent value a ton, but it probably helps it more than Sam Emerson being the every night starter, getting blown up, you losing games, missing the playoffs, but not missing it enough where you have a legitimate shot at Gavin McKenna, and you just kind of feel like you're smashing your head against a brick wall. I would almost be intrigued by the possibility that a solid enough Sam Emerson season could get the Flyers an asset next offseason and get the exclusive negotiating rights to Sam Emerson. I would like to imagine that that's on the table. And then they say, hey, there's another year of this Vladar contract. Vladar can be the steady force going into the 26-27 season. And maybe his backup is an Alexei Kolosov. I can't imagine that his backup would be a Carson Bjarnason, but we'll see this year how that goes. I cannot imagine that they would bring over Zavragin to be the backup in 26-27. But man, it would be nice to just have somebody who can hold down the fort. Getting a goalie in here who can put up around a 900 save percentage would be something this team just simply has not had in recent memory. And the steadying force that Darth Vladar has given this team so far, that earns a very early stick tap. We're doing the stick taps above the table, as we've learned over on Still the Goalie. Always do your stick taps above the table. Now, I'm going to go out to the comments. I want to see how people are feeling about your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. We didn't really dive into the Michkov of it all yet, but we will get there in a little bit. Michael Serkins here over on YouTube says, I appreciate you, Russ, and all your Philly sports views. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Remember, share it to 2 other people in your life. Watch as the audience of this show continues to grow. I'm actually going to take us off on a little side note here, because you might have seen this on Monday night, but this is a really cool moment. This is a really sweet moment. It warmed the cockles of my heart. So I go to get on the elevator going up to the press row show. You go through section 121. There's the glass doors. You tell them you're going all the way up to the sports book or whatever. It's not a sports book anymore. I don't actually know what it is. There's like a bar up there. And then the organ is there, and then it's the Snow the Goalie setup. So I'm standing waiting for the elevator, and I hear a guy go, Russ? I'm like, huh? And I see this guy, nice guy, with an older lady that I assumed was his mom, and then a little boy, probably about the age of one of my kids. I forget how old he is. I think he might be 10. I'm pretty sure he's 10. And so I see this kid. I see the dad. I see the grandma. Lovely family. And I lost the mustache. Kind of hard to recognize. Without the mustache, I get it. Shaving accident. And the dad looks at his son and goes, that's Russ. And the kid's face lit up. This kid's face lit up maybe even more than my own kid's face is lit up when I got off the plane from Vegas last week. And it's a young kid, Danny. I'm going to throw this over here really quick because this is a cool moment, right? Go to get on the elevator. And I learn, apparently, somehow, some way, I have become Danny's favorite podcaster. Now, I don't know what to think about that. I think that Danny probably needs to find better shows to listen to, because if I'm the best, that might be problematic. But I appreciate it. So here's me and Danny up at the Press Row show. Really nice moment. Good kid. Was sitting down in the 100 section, and he and his dad's right here. His dad, his grandma and I, we apparently go to the same place for breakfast a lot. So maybe I'm going to run into her. But the dad surprised his son with tickets to a Flyers game on Monday. The kid didn't know that they were going to be going to the Flyers game. And at the same time, we get to have a nice little conversation. He gets to see the whole setup, take a picture. It's very nice. There are very small things that, like, doing these shows like has like a meaningful impact, right? And anytime somebody goes out of their way to say, hey, I listened to your show. I really enjoy your show. I've now gotten a little bit more used to it. It happens more than I'm used to it happening, or I used to be. And it's really cool. And so when there's a kid like that and a nice family, and you can have a little moment, and you can have a chat, take a picture, it's pretty cool. And I always appreciate it. I appreciate people like that. They're wonderful. Okay. Steven over on YouTube says, I don't want to get too far ahead, but man, Vladar has looked so good. He has. Let's see. Tony Louie, going back to the Snow the Goalie thing, asks if there will be a call-in number. There will be. I'll put it on social tonight. I don't have it off the top of my head, but there will be. You can call into Snow the Goalie Radio tonight. Let's see. Where are we going? Oh, we have other people in the comments saying they're going to be at the Drexel Hill one. Well, that's nice. Well, that's good. Thanks, Jacqueline. We'll see you there in 2 weeks. All right, let's see. Jack Williams with a good question. Which is more important to raising the ceiling of the Flyers this year? Zegras becoming a legitimate top-line guy or the goalies just not being terrible? From a long-term perspective, Zegras being a top-line guy would be significantly more important, right? Because, like, you're not looking at Dan Vladar and Sam Ersson as being, like, the hope of a generation in goal, right? Like, when Carter Hart might be going to Las Vegas if reports are being believed. You might see that later on. Apparently, Carter Hart's going to go to Vegas. That's the rumor. Elliot Friedman put it out there on the radio today. Carter Hart might be going West Coast out to Vegas. Good luck to him. When Carter Hart came out, probably a little bit too early, if we're being realistic here, Hart was viewed as like the number one goalie prospect in a long time. Bobrovsky had a lot of optimism around him, right? And then he very quickly got shuttled away because Ilya Bryzgalov did not want to be a mentor. And so they got rid of Bobrovsky largely to pacify Ilya Bryzgalov. That worked out really well. When Hart got brought up, the hope was that he was going to be the next big thing. He was going to be the goalie that the Flyers could build around for a decade. And then obviously that didn't come to fruition for various reasons. Neither Dan Vladar nor Sam Ersson were ever looked at as a long-term option in net. Even Ivan Fedotov, who they had signed to a contract a couple of years ago and then had to go do his year of mandatory military service and everything and then came over. Fedotov wasn't even really being looked at as a decade-long goalie. He's being looked at as like a very valuable NHL contributor. And then that didn't exactly work out either. Alexei Kolosov hasn't been looked at as like the young savior in net. Bjarnason, I don't think is looked at as the young savior in net. I think he's looked at as somebody that they want to believe in will be an NHL goalie. He might not be a franchise netminder, but they think that he will be an NHL caliber goalie. The guy that you're really honed in on right now is Zavragin, who's playing over in the KHL because he had such a great season last year. He was off to a really strong start this year. If there's somebody that you don't want to rush and there's somebody that you do want to kind of build around, it's probably Zavragin. So if the goalies are not terrible, that probably, okay, let me reframe this. The goalies being is okay for this year. I misread the question though. It's about raising the ceiling this year. If the goalies aren't terrible, the Flyers make the playoffs. If Zegras is a second line player and the goalies are okay, the Flyers make the playoffs. If Zegras is a top line guy, but like a legitimate top line guy, and the goalies are bad, they might make the playoffs. That's how much of a variance, right? That's how much of a difference good goalie play could ultimately mean for the Flyers. So mediocre, passable, league average goaltending, Trevor Zegras is a second liner, you make the playoffs. I think you probably make the playoffs with a few points to spare. Zegras, legit top guy, and the goalies are about as bad as last year. You're really going to be scraping in the last few games to try to get enough points to make the playoffs. So ceiling-wise, the goalie's not being awful. I think that's probably fair. Okay. That took me a little bit to kind of get back around to. Fanny Pack asks, why do they keep sending Andre down? So it's a question that I keep asking as well. And I'm all about the meritocracy, right? I believe that you should 100% earn every minute that you play in this league. And I was big on this with Torts because there were times that I thought that Torts was being unreasonable. And there were times that I thought Torts was kind of losing the plot. I'm not saying Tocchet's there yet, but I have a legitimate question because this came out earlier today. Jackie Spiegel reported it about an hour before we went live, maybe a little bit less than an hour before we went live. Emil Andre's been sent back down. Spiegel says, looks like Emil Andre has been sent back to Lehigh Valley. His name is no longer on the Flyers roster on the NHL media site. So, to answer Fanny Pack's question, why does Andre keep being sent down? I don't know. I have no idea. I have some theories, but they're all theories that piss me off. So, follow me. There typically are two lines of thinking if you assess hockey, if you analyze hockey. There's the old school mentality. There's the new school mentality. There's the eye test. There's analytics, right? You kind of have to be able to have a hybrid of the two, I think, to assess this game and analyze this game fairly. Old school methodology, old school line of thinking is you can't be too small on your blue line. And if you are, you can't win a cup. Probably fair. Brad Shaw talked about it on Snow the Goalie last year. He was very honest about it. Tocchet, I believe, has said something similar. I think Briere and Jones have kind of alluded to it as well. You need a certain amount of size on the blue line. If the Flyers were a Stanley Cup contender, I'd totally agree with that line of thinking. I'd probably say, you know what? Emil Andre is too small. And if they think Cam York is going to play on Thursday, and you're going to have York and Drysdale in the lineup, Emil Andre probably does have to go down because you have to have a little bit more size on defense. Cool. But newsflash, the Flyers are not a Stanley Cup contender. The Philadelphia Flyers this season could be a playoff team. Not a highly seeded playoff team, but a playoff team nonetheless. You're 3 games into the season. Emil Andre is coming off a game against the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, where he was arguably one of your best defensemen on the ice and was legitimately a guy who was able to kind of connect zones, maintain possession, and give you exactly what you need as a puck-moving defenseman. Andre checked all the boxes on Monday night, and you won. And now he's going down. Now, the line of thinking is probably, well, York is going to be back in the lineup, and they also don't want to have to put Zamula on waivers because, God forbid, Zamula gets claimed. Zamula. I'd like to have more Zamula in my bank account. I don't need him playing defense for the Philadelphia Flyers. On Monday, we broke down the comments that his agent put out, right? He's been put in box to this point. He is good power play player. Yeah, okay, cool. Sure. He's a good power play player, on a beer league team, maybe on an AHL team, certainly not on an NHL team. He has not been given the opportunity. He's been given a lot of opportunities. He's not a good player, and that's okay. Agents have to stand up for the player, but he's not a particularly good player. Okay. So the Flyers keep Zamula up. They don't want to put him on waivers. Emil Andre goes down. It's not a cup contender. You're not fighting for the final points to try to lock in a playoff spot in a season where you should be competing for a playoff spot. There's no reason to send Emil Andre down. None. He played so well on Monday, I would make the argument he should be in the lineup on Thursday. I'm not entirely sure what the line of thinking is. I think it's absurd. I think it's insane. And honestly, it is like one of those things that if Tortorella were still the coach, however many years in, I'd be going after Torts for. I'm not going to go after Tocchet for it 3 games into the season, about to play the 4th on Thursday. But I am going to openly question the line of thinking. Why, after playing so well, is Emil Andre going down? Now, I know that there's this line of thinking. Well, Emil Andre, he might not be a top 6 defenseman on this team night in and night out. You don't want to have him be the 7th defenseman. You'd rather send him down to Lehigh Valley and let him play every night and play in meaningful minutes and meaningful roles. No, I would actually like to see Emil Andre at this level because I think he has done enough to deserve a spot. Ginning has been given the opportunity to earn a spot, and I would make the argument he's played pretty darn well. So good for him. But, do I need to see a Juleson? Do I need to see a Gilbert? No, I don't. I really do. Do I need to see Zamula every night? No, I don't. Emil Andre should not have been sent down. It feels like that's going to be the thing that people are going to get the most pissed off about. That's honestly what it feels like. JH over on YouTube says, I want off Mr. Zamula's wild ride. Send the bad man away. We don't know that he's a bad man. We think he's probably a good man, but he's not a good defense man. Linda Joseph says, if this team had a solid first pair defenseman, then yeah, legitimate playoff team. Well, if you want to go with the idea of a legitimate first pair, I will kind of go back to something kind of interesting that Anthony DeMarco put out in one of his recent stories. And it was about Rasmus Dahlin and about the fact that Buffalo maybe would consider moving him. But they maybe, it would cost you a lot. To get Dahlin, it would cost A lot. It's not a simple 1-for-1 kind of thing. So DeMarco put out a poll on Twitter, said completely spitballing and having some fun. But if you're the Flyers, would you trade Lutsenko, Tippett, Bonk, and a 2027 first rounder for Rasmus Dahlin? And I said I would. And then I would try to get a mental health evaluation of the Sabres front office at that point. Dahlin's 25 years old. Very likely, will be a top pair defenseman for the better part of a decade and would certainly bring a lot of stability to this blue line. And I guess I could also point out, if we care, that he's 6'3" and 204 pounds, which means he wouldn't fit the bill as a small defenseman. So he's got the size, he's got the ability. He would tremendously help. So again, Lutsenko, who I'm not high on, Tippett, who I'm not high on, Bonk, who I have no idea about, and then a 2027 first rounder, which means the not Gavin McKenna draft. Yeah, I would make that deal. I'd make that deal almost immediately. Without a doubt. Would the Sabres make that trade? Probably not. I would assume they would want back a Travis Konechny. Maybe they would want to get a replacement defenseman in like a Travis Sanheim, which probably wouldn't make a ton of sense. But Lutsenko, Tippett, Bonk, and a 2027 first rounder, hell yeah. You 1,000% make that trade. Because I don't own any Jet Lutsenko stock. I never bought the stock, but if I did, I would have sold it by now. Tippett, I had a little bit of stock. I have sold all but one share. Bonk, I never bought stock. 2027 first rounder, I have no idea what it's going to be. I would gladly take somebody that could be a top pair defenseman for a decade and maybe even be that top pair defenseman with Travis Sanheim for a decade. I would take that. Yeah. I would take that stability. Video guy Amadeo correctly points out the Sabres did get rid of Dylan Cousins for basically nothing, so I can see the possibility. Maybe. Ray Suppers here says Buffalo's the Jets, the New York Jets of the NHL. Thank you for the distinction there. Not the Winnipeg Jets. Not the Winnipeg Jets. Let's see. There were other things that I wanted to get to about the Fly guys as well. Chris Freed says, Florida going for a three-peat. They do not care about a game being played in October against a team that has missed the playoffs for 5 straight years. Yeah, but they're not going out to actively lose it either. They competed. The Flyers just happened to get a lead and then get a couple of empty netters. The second of which cost intern Andrew an extra point in our predictions contest. So that was lovely. Amadeo asks, can we laugh at the Rangers being unable to score a goal at home this season? Yeah, they've been shut out in 3 straight games at home. That is pretty damn awful. I mean, we've had some bad teams in Philadelphia. They haven't done that to start a season. Let's see. Chris says, Vladar is like a utility bench player in baseball. Looks great in short spurts, but use him too much and he'll get badly exposed. That's kind of like what the Erson of the world appeared to be. In a backup capacity, he was really strong. When he became the number one guy, he fell apart. Chris says, I call this the Ryan Ellis syndrome for Russ. He did the same thing with Ellis. I don't know who this is in reference to. Jake Rogers over on YouTube. Hello, Jake. Like the video, show the video, subscribe. Says, I like Ginning so far. Thought he played with a nice pace. He did. Remember last year, too. Ginning played well in moments where he actually had the opportunity at the NHL level. And then people were like, well, he's actually an AHL defenseman. He's just getting lucky. I think he's actually okay. Jay Grubby's here with a good afternoon to Russell and the Russettes. Hello, Jay. Thank you for being here. David Castleman. It's your birthday. Hello, David. It's your birthday. Happy birthday, David Castleman. How old are you today? 26. I bet 26, David Castleman. 26? Good for you. Zach O is here with an oh yes and a happy Wednesday. Hello. Hello. All right, let's see. Is there anything else that I needed to get to on the Flyers of it all? I think we're okay. Let's see. Lawrence Fine says, let Vladar and Erson battle it out till there's a clear-cut winner. For all we know, neither one are going to stink it up. We'll find out. Nick Johnson says $46.7 million in cap space next season. Notable free agents: Zegras, Drysdale, Brink, Grabenkin, Erson, and the cap is only going up. They'll have all the guys back that they want to have back next year. That is pretty much a guarantee. Pretty much a guarantee. Ford says, give me my my birthday was in August. Give me Joe Biden. Happy birthday, Ford. Can I do a Biden? Can I do a Biden right now? Okay, hold on. I don't have sunglasses. It's easier to do a Biden when you have sunglasses. Hey, Ford, I'm not joking. Happy birthday. Heard it was your birthday. You had a birthday. It was the day of your birth. There was a birth. I was born. I was born before it too. I was born now World War II. World War II. There was Hitler. There's Stalin. A lot of bad guys. Trump's a bad guy. He's a bad guy. And I'm not a sucker and a loser. You're a sucker and a loser, Ford. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Ford. Sucker and a loser. All right. Let's move on. Off of the Flyers and back to other sports. There is a very strong discourse right now about how bad things have gotten and how predictable things have gotten with the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I'm not going to show you the full clip, but I will tell you that beyond a shadow of a doubt, if I were going to trust somebody on a video breakdown, it'd be Brian Baldinger. And Brian Baldinger did a nice breakdown. And it was really, really concerning. So Baldy goes over to Twitter yesterday, and he puts out 3 third down calls that the Eagles made, 3 third down play calls that the Eagles made. And I'm going to just try really quickly. I'm actually going to pan through this instead of playing it for reasons when it comes to video takedowns over on the YouTube. But what you would see if you watch through the whole thing is that there are mirror concepts of 2 go routes and 2 5-yard curls that are run by receivers. And the formation is the same. The pre-snap motion with Dallas Goedert is the same. The plays are effectively the same each and every time. Now, these are 3 third down calls at different points in the game. But Baldy broke down. He said, not only is it predictable, that's not even doing the word predictable justice. So if you thought to yourself, Kevin Petullo's offense does look really predictable, and it does look very repetitive, and it seems shocking that the playmakers on this team can't get open. You then get Baldy going and doing a breakdown of 3 third down calls at different distances. I think it was a 3rd and 3, a 3rd and 8, and a 3rd and 6. They're running the same formation, and they're running the same play on 3 third down calls in the same game against the same opponent. Now, who does that fall on? Is that a Nick Sirianni problem? Is that a Kevin Petullo problem? Did Jalen Hurts by chance audible into all 3 of those calls? I have to imagine it's not the 3rd. I would imagine that it came down to the play calling. Why the hell would you call the same play, or essentially the same play 3 times on 3 third downs? Why would you do that? Now, Peter Tom Willis chimes in here over on X. Says Baldy says Hurts is the main culprit. He says it's Hurts' offense. If Jalen Hurts is responsible for that same play call 3 times on 3 third downs in the same game, then we need to have a conversation about Jalen Hurts' decision-making as a play caller. But I don't tend to think that Hurts is calling the plays at the line of scrimmage. I don't get the feeling that he's been given full autonomy to call the game himself. I still think it comes down to Kevin Petullo. And if that's the case, that is problematic. I heard that there was also another breakdown somewhere of rushing plays, and that the motion that Saquon was going in was essentially the same on 4 or 5 plays in the same game against the Giants. That is a deeply concerning trend. We're going to come back to it, though, because I will tell you that it is really, really worrisome that no matter which station you turn on, if it's WIP, if it's the Fanatic, it feels like there is a giant pile-on happening on Jalen Hurts. And now I am a Jalen Hurts believer, and I will always look at a player for how they perform in the biggest moments. And as I've said many times on this show, Jalen Hurts has outperformed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. He's won one of them. He's lost one of them. I will also point to the fact Landon Dickerson has not been healthy this entire season, right? Injuries on the offensive line have been killers for this team. The Dickerson injury, I think, is probably the biggest issue so far. I also don't think the Eagles did a very good job of replacing Mekhi Becton, who didn't get a lot of money to go play out west. Could that ultimately be a big mistake by Howie Roseman? It could be. Did they think that they had a guy internally who could fill that Mekhi Becton role? Apparently. It's disappointing. The reason that I bring up all this discourse around Hurts, though, is because there was somebody who came out on Philly Sports Talk Radio who is usually very critical, with whom I don't always agree, on WP's morning show. He's a former Eagle. He's a guy that used to watch on pre and post game live over on NBC Sports Philly. Seth Joyner has become the voice of reason when it comes to the Eagles. Now, we're not going to play this whole thing, but I want you to hear what Seth Joyner had to say about the discourse around Jalen Hurts. You know, the reigning Super Bowl MVP.
This situation more than everything, more than anything, is this presents the opportunity for the "I told you so"s, and I. Oh God,
but both ways.
I'm glad I just caught my.
I was rightus.
I hate it because for the times where the guy thrives and he has successes, okay, we want to lose vision of that.
I agree with that. I do think that oftentimes when Hurts finds success, whether it's in the Super Bowl, whether it's in the regular season last year, that credit typically gets given to the skilled players, or we hear what a great offensive line it is. And it really does diminish Hurts as a quarterback. It reduces his importance to the offense. I don't think that part's fair.
But when he goes through a period of, difficulty, we want to pile on. Now, there's 7 games. They got 11 games left in the regular season. We don't know what that's going to look like. He could flip the switch at any moment. Anything could flip at any moment. Am I concerned? Yes, I am. Okay? And let me be honest with you.
I expect them to turn it around, though.
Even if they don't, I am a proud former Philadelphia Eagle because guess what? We just won the damn Super Bowl. So I'm going to go.
That's another important point. Now, I understand the people who say, hey, you won the Super Bowl last year. That's awesome, but we need you to find that same success this year. And they're not willing to kind of move off it, right? There are Eagles fans who say, hey, the Super Bowl is great. We got to celebrate it. We got to do the parade. It was great. Awesome. But that doesn't give you permission to then stink up the joint the next year. I understand that mentality. I don't necessarily think it's the right mentality to have right now, but I understand why people have it. All right, let's keep going.
Go back again. Let's learn how to be a little more damn grateful for the good things that we have after looking at what the Flyers are going through.
Yep.
Let's look at what, the Phillies have just gone through, the misery that those teams have put us through, what the Sixers, have put us through. But the team that's given us some joy, we can't be grateful enough to enjoy it, knowing that most teams, when they come off of a Super Bowl, they're going to struggle anyway because they're going to lose some key pieces.
True.
If they go through some injuries, which the Eagles did not go through at all last year.
Correct.
If your quarterback struggles, every darn quarterback struggles. I don't care who it is.
The health of the team last year is the thing that we all kind of quietly knew was the case, but nobody wanted to say out loud for fear of jinxing it. But the offensive line was healthy last year. When you have a healthy offensive line that is working cohesively together, where that runs on autopilot and the quarterback knows what to expect timing-wise, when you have that, that changes things a lot. That takes a lot of worry out of the back of the mind of the quarterback. Right now, at any given time, he's got 3 of his starters from a season ago on that line. Protection's breaking down. They're missing blitz pickups. There's just broken, they're just broken moments in the line where you're getting rushers coming through that in the past would have been picked up either by a back, by a tight end, or it's just a flat out one-on-one loss at the line. And that throws off your timing, throws off your rhythm. It gets your quarterback looking to check the line and maybe lose sight of being downfield where your playmakers and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown live. And oh, by the way, if the offensive coordinator is calling the same set, the same play 3 times on a third down in the same game, that also doesn't help. All right, we're going to finish this up.
All struggle. Patrick Mahomes, over the first 5 weeks, struggled. He looked good last night. But the first 5 games, he looked like an average freaking quarterback.
That's true.
But we want to beat our quarterback up. Am I concerned about him? Yes.
The reason that there's so much negative discourse around Jalen Hurts, flat out, call it what it is, Radio needs ratings. Radio needs the Nielsen ratings. Controversy creates cash. The Eric Bischoff principle. Controversy creates cash. These stations, and like in fairness, like if we are telling the truth, could I change how this channel runs and this show runs and become a legitimate hot take artist that doesn't believe any of the shit that I say so that I could get bigger social followings on TikTok and Instagram faster and turn this channel into something that's 3 or 4 times the size of what it is now easily? I could do that. I could maybe even argue I should do that, but I'm not going to do it because the people who tune into this show expect a certain level of analysis, some irreverence, and ultimately my fair and honest opinion on where each team in Philadelphia stands. The radio station people, I'm not convinced, believe what they say. I'm actually convinced that a good number of them don't really believe what they're saying at all. I think that there's a modicum of truth to some of the stances they take, but they are very acutely aware of what they're doing. And I remember there was a comment on the stream a week or two ago. Somebody saying that John Marks, when he landed on the Fanatic doing the midday show, that he alluded to the fact that at WIP they were kind of told, you know, you're almost playing this like heel character. You know, in order to kind of drum up calls and interest on social, you have to play a certain role. You have to be provocative. And like when you're winning in your time slot and you're getting a bonus and that bonus helps your family, well, it makes sense. And if you're going head to head with another station in town, it makes sense. But it is disingenuous. And there's a whole lot of hand wringing around. Was Jalen Hurts ever really that good? He won you a Super Bowl. He got you to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. And had it not been for a weird pass interference call in the first appearance, you maybe have 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. Maybe you're talking about the Eagles being a potential dynasty. And instead, months removed from a Super Bowl win, the second one in franchise history, you have people saying Jalen Hurts is the problem. I saw Howard Eskin was on with Dan Sileo of all people, right? Saying that Hurts isn't even the best quarterback on the team. Tanner McKee should be the starter. Are you kidding me? Are we watching the same game? Are we watching the same team? Are we like really though? Are we? I'm not telling you that Jalen Hurts is the best quarterback in the National Football League, but he's certainly not near the top 5 concerns on this team right now. Not even close. Top 5 issues in no particular order. Offensive coordinator. Wide receiver that keeps taking headlines after games. Lack of depth on the edge. Secondary issues. The head coach. Because the head coach has to be able to figure out the wide receiver. The head coach has to be able to figure out the offensive coordinator calling plays. I'd put some of those on the head coach as well. I'm also not calling for the head coach's head. He needs to have a head. Otherwise, he's just a coach. Hurts isn't your top 5 issues on this team. You guys might not believe me. Some of you might disagree. I saw some people saying some negative things about Hurts. But I don't think he's the issue right now. John Izzy says, I am with Russ. Thank you, John. I am with Russ. I am grateful for us winning the Super Bowl. I think one of the biggest issues for some fans is Sirianni, who kept saying last year is over. We're focused on this year and doing it again. That is a really good point. If you remember back to the beginning of the season, when I was like, all right, he said that like he didn't realize that they were doing the Super Bowl thing pregame or whatever. And I was like, well, that's obviously bullshit. And then it was, we're focused on this year, last year's over. And I said, well, that's also kind of bullshit. Like that might be the only Super Bowl you win, right? Like Sirianni, that might be his only one that he ever wins. Jalen Hurts or Saquon Barkley, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, might be the only Super Bowl those guys ever win. You should enjoy it. You're not looking in the rearview mirror and losing sight of the task at hand on a given day, but you should be able to celebrate the success that you had at reaching the pinnacle of the sport. I disagreed with that at the time, and it's not like that's actually the issue right now, but when you keep saying it's all about this year and these are the results, it's not great. Not great. Ford says, number one issue is the offensive line injuries. There you go. That can be one of the top 6 things I have an issue with. Play calling, defensive liabilities due to injury. How about Zadarius Smith retiring out of nowhere, like we talked about on Monday? That's not great. Let's see. Catholic Nona says, I don't think it's a coincidence that when Hurts had a quality, high-level offensive coordinator, he had his best year. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Steichen was a good offensive coordinator. He had a really strong year. Then they went with an internal hire. It was horrific. Then they brought in Kellen Moore. There was a rough patch early last year as Kellen Moore kind of got things figured out. And then Hurts took off in a big way. Let's see. Catholic Nono also asks, who even listens to radio anymore? It's a dead medium. A lot of people do, including tonight. Snow the Goalie Radio. 6 o'clock, Chickies and Pizza Malvern. You can tune in online. You can tune in on the radio. People will listen. And they'll call in tonight, too. It's going to be a lot of fun. Doug asks, are we doing Allentown? I think you mean for Chickies and Pizza. No, we're not going all the way up to Allentown. Could we do something else up in Allentown? Maybe. I don't know. If you have a lead on a business that wants to host Snow the Goalie or the Russ Joy Show or something, let me know. Reach out. Happy to chat. Let's see. Chris says, sports talk will fully move to YouTube and apps within the next decade. Radio or like TV stations, obsolete, but will survive only until the next ad recession. There's maybe some truth to that. I think it's more likely that you see one of the stations, probably the Fanatic, kind of, just fall apart. Like if they're not competitive, right? Like if the John Marks experiment in the middays doesn't do much to move business forward in a meaningful way, John Kincaid's contract runs out and they don't bring somebody else in the morning and that doesn't help all the numbers on the station, then maybe Beasley looks at it and says, what's the point? But I can't envision a scenario where you're going to have no sports talk radio station in Philadelphia. I don't see that. Nicholas. Now, Nicholas, if I'm going to go with this is an Italian last name, Tucciarone. That is correct. Tucciarone. Now, if you say, you better not say Tucciarone. If you say like Tucciarone or something, ooh. But Nicholas Tucciarone, hey, how you doing? Says only concern with Hurts is time to release, but there's more than one factor to influence that, including receivers getting open. Hey, look at this. Nicholas Tucciarone. Hey, how you doing? Nicholas, good man. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. Ford also says, Paisan. Good God. No, he's totally right. There is more than one factor. If you're worried about release time, if you think that Hurts is holding it too long, I will probably point back to the offensive line issues and that his timing is just off because he's kind of fighting for his life on more snaps than not this year than he was a year ago. Getting love for the Pottsville Pizzeria t-shirt. My sister got me this for my birthday. I love Pottsville Pizzeria. There is not a single pizzeria, a single pizza place in the greater Philadelphia area that makes a pizza like Pottsville Pizzeria. It's a totally different experience. Plus, there's no Gears iced tea down here. I need to get back up and get some Pottsville Pizzeria. By the way, I mentioned Gears. If you're from Skook, you have an idea what this is. So Gears, they make the iced tea. They have the dairy, right? They have milk and all that stuff, and they supply it to the schools and like Pottsville and all that. When we were in the Outer Banks, we were getting breakfast one morning at this really good spot in Kerala. And as we're waiting to go in, I see this like milk crate out of the corner of my eye. And it's this very distinct, like kind of lavender purple color. And I'm like, you got to be kidding. And I lean over the railing and I look down and it says Gears Dairy. And I went, oh my God, there it is. From back home. From back home. It made it all the way down to the Outer Banks. Hey, Ma, I made it. Okay. Ray Supper here with another good point. Another factor is every team the Eagles play have the game circled when the schedule came out. Every opponent is playing against the reigning Super Bowl champion. That is also true. You can't sneak up on somebody when you're the reigning defending Super Bowl champion. That actually kind of also played out, right? For the Flyers beating the Panthers. You're playing the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion. They are probably looking down on you. They also have injury issues, but like the Flyers are going to kind of have that game circled, right? Chance to take on the team that won it all a year before. How do you stack up against them? All right. Brandon Vidal. We got Skooks in the chat today. Says doing it Mart's Hall. That would be pretty funny. If I were a wildly famous, successful person, I would absolutely do a show at Mart's Hall. I would. It'd be a lot of fun. Mart's Hall is huge. You should look it up. If you don't know what Mart's Hall is, it is the Mecca for basketball. So you gotta look at it. Look it up. All right, last thing I want to get to has nothing to do with Philly sports. It's a very quick thing. Sometimes we do media notes on this show. The worst kept secret in sports media for about a month or so is that Ryen Russillo was leaving The Ringer. The Ringer! Bill Simmons' venture. Now, Bill Simmons and Ryen Russillo did some great podcasting together for the last few years. Great podcasting, especially on Sundays around the NBA. Ryen Russillo and Bill Simmons were running an incredible give and go. Fantastic. Russillo's contract runs out this year. Actually, it runs out, I believe, this month. And so for months, the question has been, will Ryen Russillo be back at The Ringer doing what he's been doing for Bill Simmons? Or could he have eyes to go elsewhere? Now, he had a very not great end at ESPN. You can look that up. And to some extent, Bill Simmons kind of saved him, kept him on an island of relevancy, and brought him into The Ringer. And Russillo got back on his feet in a very big way, built up his listenership, built up his audience. And he's been a valuable contributor to Bill Simmons' podcast and to The Ringer as a whole. But it came out about a month ago that Russillo was going to be leaving The Ringer for Barstool. And then people went, whoa, Russillo to Barstool. What does this mean? What could this look like? Then a further report said, well, he's not actually going to like Barstool proper. He's creating his own media venture, and it's going to be backed by Dave Portnoy, who owns Barstool. Russillo has not been on Bill Simmons' podcast for, I think, over a month. There has been no mention of Ryen Russillo on Bill Simmons' show. Bill Simmons, who typically comments on media and things, has not uttered the name Ryen Russillo. Ryen Russillo had not mentioned Bill Simmons. The other day, Ryen Russillo puts out a tweet that says, last episode on Spotify is whatever day. And then I go, all right, he's clearly leaving. Well, then Ryen Russillo goes to Twitter yesterday, and he puts out a video that is absolutely wild. Ryen Russillo drops a little bombshell. Not a huge one, but a big enough bombshell that it even got me going, ooh, this is very interesting. This is very, very interesting. I'm actually going to throw over to what Ryen Russillo had to say, because he announced that he's got this new show coming, that it's going to essentially be the same show that he's been doing for The Ringer. But there's something very important to catch in here, that if you are up at all on listening to Ringer shows, you will know there's a very big poaching going on. Let's go over here real quick to Ryen Russillo making his announcement.
Hey there. All right. So the new podcast starts November 3rd. We need you to subscribe to this new feed. None of that stuff is coming with me. So new feed, new YouTube page. So hopefully we can get the word out. The first episode, again, November 3rd. Cerruti's coming with me. Kyle's coming with me. Worked it out.
All right. So he has to do a new feed. New podcast feed, new YouTube channel. Those aren't coming with him, but Cerruti is and Kyle is. We're going to get back to that in a second.
With those guys, Dave and I talked for 5 minutes. I wanted a partnership at this stage of my career. He was like, no problem. So here we go. Off and running. We'll do some NBA stuff on the YouTube page next week. So again, it's going to basically be the same show and maybe even a discussion on tile work.
The big news in there. So he has to do a new podcast feed. He has to do a new YouTube channel. He's not keeping any of the stuff that he's already established. And he's taking Cerruti and Kyle. If you are up at all on The Ringer and you listen to any of those podcasts, you will know that Kyle is Nephew Kyle, who is legitimately Bill Simmons' nephew. And now it might make a little bit of sense why Bill Simmons hasn't mentioned Ryen Russillo in a month. It may make sense why Ryen Russillo did not have Bill Simmons in the end of his show as a thank you for the time he spent at The Ringer. He legitimately is taking Bill Simmons' nephew with him to this new venture that's backed in part by Barstool. I mean, I saw a thing going around. It was a clip from Succession where Tom asks cousin Greg to kind of betray his family and roll with Tom and be Tom's like right-hand man. You know, like you're going to have to turn your back on your family, but I'm going to take care of you. And then cousin Greg's like, okay. I saw that comparison. I'm like, this is perfect. So this maybe explains why it has not been a particularly friendly or warm, hey, great time, man. You know, bring it in. Questions I have. Zach Lowe cost a lot of money. Was the money that went to Zach Lowe part of why Bill Simmons and Ryen Russillo couldn't come to an agreement? I don't know. Did Ryen Russillo want a certain amount of ownership in the Ringer and Simmons wasn't willing to give it? I don't know. I think Russillo is going to be really successful. I think it's going to work out really well. I think he actually fits Barstool pretty damn well. That's all. But boy, it was very, very interesting to me. All right, I think I'm good. All right, I will be back on Friday with the Russ Joy Show. Don't forget, we talked about this at the top of the show, but I will come back to it one more time just for funsies, just because I feel like it. There are a lot of shows going on with Joy Media this week. Most notably, we have Snow the Goalie Radio tonight at Chickies and Pete's in Malvern. 6 o'clock start there. Thursday, Flyers Jets, 6:30 start for the Press Row Show up in the balcony level at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. And then Saturday, we're back down there for Flyers Wild, also a 6:30 start down at the balcony level at the Xfinity Mobile Arena. So you will see me every single day. If you are following Joy Media, you will follow me like every day. I was here on Monday. All right, I wasn't here Tuesday, but Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday here on the Russ Joy Show, and then Saturday again with the Press Row Show. So if you haven't gotten sick of me yet, thank you. Make sure you like the video, share the video, subscribe. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Until Friday, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. You know, let's do the same thing we did at the beginning. Let's just have a moment. You are smart. You were smart. You found the show. You didn't give in to a lot of the nonsense that goes on in the sports talk radio space. You had a little bit of fun today. I hope you had a little bit of fun. You might have had a little bit of fun in the comments. You might have had a little bit of fun just kind of chuckling to yourself, maybe in the car, in class, at work, wherever you are. But you're smart. So again, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy. You knew that because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I'll be back on Friday. Have a great day, everybody. Bye now.